Today we're going to start a very important cycle of music reading lesson 2 and about reading in bass clef. This is something very difficult, as a very hard step for people starting playing the piano, starting learning the piano. And this is for a very simple reason, because normally people start learning start learning how to read in treble clef, and so for this reason it is difficult then to switch to another clefs, such as a bass clef. So, and if you want to play the piano, of course you must be able to read either treble and bass clef. So today we're going to start a very effective method about learning how to read in bass clef, and it is very different from a very common method that I don't suggest to use, which is starting from this note and thinking about it as it were written in treble clef. So this will be an E note in treble clef. So I go up 2 steps and move down. I move up by 2 steps, and so it becomes a G. And so this way I will call it G in bass clef. So we will not do something like this, but we will do something different. So we will consider bass clef on its own. And we're going starting finding some, we can call them musical cardinal points, because they are something like cardinal points when we must orientate. And this is exactly the same. We're going to find these musical cardinal points, which will be some notes of reference written in bass clef. And thanks to this note, we'll learn to find them on the spot. And then once we know them, it will be very easy to find all the other notes close to these notes. So let's start from these 4 notes of reference. The first one is middle C. The second one is the next lower G from middle C. Then the next one is the next lower, this is another C note, which is the next, it is 1 octave lower from middle C. Then the next lower G from this C. These are our 4 cardinal points about reading in bass clef. So once we find them, once we are able to find them on the spot, and we must do not without considering any relationship between these and other notes. So all we have to do is to think that this is written on the 4th space, this is written on the 2nd space, this is written on the 1st line. So all we have to do is, okay, this note is written on the 4th space, so it is called G. This note is written on the 1st line, so it is called G, and so on and so forth. Once we know very well these 4 notes, we will be able to find all the other notes that are close to these. So, for example, these notes, since it is the next lower note from C, will be called a B. This one, since it is the next upper from G, will be called A. This is the next higher from C, so it is D. This is the next lower from G, so it is F. So this will be the way we are going to learn to read in bass clef. And of course, this note is the most difficult to find, because this is between 2 notes which are not reference notes, F and D. And so for this reason, we will introduce a 5th note of reference, which will be this F note, but this will be done in the last lesson. So at this point, we start learning and practicing with the audio files and the PDF file that you find in this lesson by learning and finding these notes, so developing these skills in finding and calling these 4 notes, and then we're going to move progressively to learn all the other notes which are close to these notes of reference. So I suggest you to practice with our audio files and the PDF file that you find in this lesson.